Prepare for the return of the Alternative View Conference, AV5. Humanity versus Insanity, a conference that will make a difference. Featuring the most challenging and thought-provoking speakers from across the globe. May the 16th to the 18th, 2014. Staverton Park Hotel, Daventry, Northamptonshire. AV5, the Alternative View.
So that's what the police did to him. He is a poet, a coach, and he's also, I've just spoken to him now, quite motivational. So he will use NLP on you for your own benefit rather than other people trying to manipulate you. So he just said that he would create positive anchors in you if you need inspiration in public speaking. So obviously it's most people's greatest fear and mine at the moment. But I'm going to pass you over to Simon, who does it a lot better than I do.
I just need to qualify something that Daisy said. I am not going to be using NLP on you, but I am going to be talking, amongst other things, about ways that you can choose to anchor things within yourselves if you wish to. I operate in transparency. I play many tricks while I speak. I let you know what they are as they are happening, always. Transparency is the way forward, as we've been privy to over the day that we've had so far. So much seems to happen behind the curtains of government, of corporation, of banks and finance. Bear with me. You've got me for an hour. I have prepared probably 2 hours ago what I want to talk to you about. I have a lot of things to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone out and time myself. I don't want to go overboard. The first thing I'd like to say is that I just want to talk a little bit about where I've been over the last 12 months so that you have a sort of an idea of how I've ended up here in this rather marvellous suit. Hooray for the suit! Yes. So I lived in Brighton for 8 years, up until about 5 years ago, at which point I realised that I needed something different. I didn't know what I wanted, and I kept on looking for other places to live. And they kept on falling apart at the last minute. And I already had a healthy belief in, the universe and the interconnectedness of all things in the universe, yes? People, animals and things, the network that knits everything together that we can't see when we're looking from a three-dimensional perspective, which is most of us. And then somebody asked me to go to a party in the countryside. So I went to Balcombe, to this house. And it was incredible. There was a swimming pool in the garden. There was 35 acres of private woods. And only a week before, I'd been sitting in a car with a friend, ranting about how all these things aren't working and everything's falling apart and I can't find anywhere to live. I mean, you wouldn't know it to look at me, but I am a little bit of a drama king. Who would have thought? Whew, glad I got that one out of the way. I feel like we really know each other well now. That's wonderful. Thank you again. So this party was incredible, and it was 2 days, and I slept in a tent in the garden that someone else provided. And the next morning, this woman called Wendy came up to me and said, "Hello, you're Simon, aren't you? You're the poet." "Yes, I've heard all about you. It sounds like you've been making noises. You want to move in here?" And I said, "Well, not exactly." You know the kind of rant? Yeah? Everyone's had that kind of rant every now and again, yes? It's not very optimal. It's a bit of a whinge. And he looked at me and he said, "Simon, you're always talking to me about invoking the power of the universe. Why don't you tell me what you do want rather than what you don't want?" And I said, fine, I want my own bedroom, I want my own study, I want woods, I want fields, I want to be in nature, and I want like cosmic housemates who have some sort of connection with spirit or nature or a guru or something that's alternative but that keeps them grounded. That's what I want. Now, prayer comes in many different styles. And I did not realize that I was praying. It didn't feel like a prayer, it felt like a rant. And when Wendy, this woman at this party, this rather official lady, she said, well, we need 2 boys and 2 girls. We've got 2 women already and 1 man, and we're looking for 1 more person. If you move in here, it'll be £350 a month, and you'll get your own bedroom, your own study. We've got 35 acres of private woods. There's a swimming pool in the garden. I just started to sort of glaze over a little bit. Wow. What is going on? And then she said, the lease starts on the 4th of July. This was 2009. And I just thought about when my lease in Brighton was ending, and it was the 3rd of July. 1 week from this point. So suddenly I found myself packing everything up and moving to the countryside, where I've lived for the last 5 years so successfully I cannot describe the fundamental revisioning that has happened in my human system. I believed in lots of things that I wanted to learn how to anchor within myself up until this point, not through NLP necessarily. I'm just talking about locking something and loading it within you, a new way of being, a new way of thinking. And the last 5 years has really paved the way for that. Since I moved to Balcombe, I discovered that I had the balls, excuse my French, to quit working in marketing and sales, which was a 15-year career for me, during which I'd started to earn actually the beginning of decent money. But there was no room for poetry. There was no room for storytelling. I mean, I did it with my clients on the phone. Yes, I can sell you email credits and teach you how to be optimal in the marketplace and get into the inbox every single time. And would you like to hear my new poem? So by the end of 3 years working for an email marketing company called Pure 360, I had 90 clients, 75 of which always assumed they would get a new poem while they were ordering their email credits or getting training on HTML. One thing I've discovered in my life, certainly, which I'm sure many of you embrace, is that if you want the listening for you in the world to be different, you need to speak to the listening that you want people to have for you, rather than the listening that already exists. Does that make sense? And if you speak to a different listening in a charismatic and engaging way, people move to the new listening, and they start to rewrite the script that they have about you. And so I had all these clients. And I, one day, I chose, we'll talk about the difference between choice and decision in a while, that's very important, to walk out of my career, leave Brighton, go to the countryside, and start to claim benefits. Now, that was hard. Right? I am so employable. I got no business claiming benefits. Benefits surely are for people who are very obese, or have 18 children, or are clinically depressed. They're not for people like me. My dad was a teacher at Eton College, for goodness sake. So I had these massive wrestling issues about leaving the working world behind so that I could really carve my dreams out, essentially of thin air. And then I had a friend sitting with me in a car. One of my best conversations happened in cars. And she said, for goodness sake, Simon, benefits are made for people like you. You want to use them as a means to an end, right? You're going to be a famous poet, right? So you're going to use them until you don't need them anymore, and then you're going to give them up and you'll be successful. I'm like, well, yeah, that's the plan. And I suddenly realized that if I were to use the benefit system in the way that I wanted to, which was as a crutch while I learned how to walk again from scratch, essentially, into financial independence in my own life through being a poet, which, by the way, is incredibly tough. Yes? You can get poetry online for free, right? I would like a poem about... on Google. Do you have to pay for that? Nope. Tough. How on earth do I create a value around myself? Well, guess what? I did it. And in the last 5 years, I've produced 2 books. 3rd one written and illustrated, just about to be produced. 4th one written, and some fabulous, exciting short stories. I have recreated my life, and it was hard. And now I seem to be doing it all over again. In the last 6 months, everything I thought I knew has turned upside down. When Quadrilla came to Balcombe, I just popped down to see what a protest looked like on day 1. Oh, I wonder what it's going to look like. I'll just go down the road. And I did. And I found myself getting engaged with all these hardcore protectors. Words that were floating through my head just then were like anarchists, hippies, all the favourite media jargon words they use to segregate people into groups to keep us divided so that they can continue to conquer us and make us feel separate. Yes, protectors, but I didn't know that word when I went down that first day, and I watched toilets being put up, I watched kitchens being put up, I watched homes being erected on the side of the road, and within about 3 weeks I realised that I wanted to spend more and more time down there. And then, while I was sitting at my computer desk, I started to have Jerusalem. You know, the William Blake? And did, yes, those feet in ancient times. You may start to see now why I got arrested for singing. I'm not a singer, I'm a poet. I mean, how was I to know? And this tune kept on going around in my head, and round and around and around, and eventually I thought, I must sort this out. So I started to rewrite the lyrics to Jerusalem. And I struggled a little bit with that because William Blake is an idol of mine. He was an extraordinary man. He was a visionary. He really was. You know, I don't know if anyone's read Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. Two opposing views, the light and the dark. I love that because it shows you the path. And that's really important for now because we live in a very dark world and light is all around us, but we have to learn how to find and then cross this bridge. And it's a bridge of perception. I meet people daily who think that we're living in heaven, and I meet people daily who think we're living in hell. Right now, and we all seem to exist in the same physical space, and yet we don't. Clear? Can you all just say yes? Yes! Hooray! Good. Encouragement, always good, always good. Yes, thank you. And we came up with this thing. I say we, I'm talking about me and Mr. Blake. And did they frack in ancient times, poisoning waters once so clean? And it was all about their filthy rigs of doom on England's peasant pasture scene, and it all just fell into place, and so many of the words were akin to the original that when people started to sing it on sight, people leant right into it and felt impassioned about England's green and peasant land. Even people who aren't that patriotic were doing it because the song, the tune, and the lyrics invoke something that gives most people goosebumps, and people who don't think they can sing forget they can't sing and sing anyway. And on the day that I went down with the hymn sheets, I got a lot of people to sing it, about 30. And as I was leaving, feeling pleased and excited, this lady with white hair came up to me and said, do you live in the village? I said, yes. She said, oh, so do I. I was just about to leave because everyone is, descended onto the side of the road and there's no other townsfolk here and I feel a little bit out of my depth and, she wasn't an old lady, but she was an older lady, probably about 65, maybe close to 70. And, she said, that was a marvellous song. Did you write that, the new lyrics? I said, yes. And she said, well, I'm bringing a whole lot of Balkan residents down tomorrow. Can we have copies of it? And we'll sing it on the way down the hill. And I just had this hot flush that if we could get all the Balkan residents singing it on the way down the hill and all the protectors on site singing it to greet the arrival, knowing already that ITV, BBC and Sky were all there trying to work out how to tell more lies in their stories that the townspeople think the smelly hippies should leave and the smelly hippies don't like the townspeople because they're all Middle England tea-drinking conservatives. If we could show this unity happening, we'd turn them on their heads and we would be able to remove an entire set of stories about things they were saying was going on in our village that actually weren't going on. And look, sometimes I get very hot and very excited. It's happening now. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Good! Gosh, come on. But this is how it's going to be for the next 45 minutes. So the more engaged you get quickly, the less I'm going to flail you, yes? Good. So, anyway, the next day we came down and it was epic. It was incredible. All these people came down and I was just in the right place at the right time. But I then suddenly got crowned this kind of choir man. Oh dear. And someone said, well, you did some event management in your past, would you sort out a thing? And I said, yes, I'd love to. So, came up with the name Belt It Out at Balcombe, not Bang It Out at Balcombe, as someone suggested yesterday. And Suddenly then my phone was ringing off the hook with media and a choir mistress, an amazing big American Jewish gay lady from New York called MJ. Simon, I hear you want a choir master. I'm a choir master. I got choirs all over England. We can all come and sing your songs. I'm like, wow, okay, that sounds great. You know, nobody wanted paying because it was all about the fracking. So suddenly I was just this kind of hub for different communications to come in. And this huge event built itself around me. And by the time it was done, 2 weeks later, we had 600 people on the side of the road singing lots of awesome songs, including the new version of Jerusalem, which we call And Did They Frack? And a rather... well, I thought it was risky, but it wasn't, as it turned out. An alternative version of God Save the Queen. Now, I don't know how many people know the original words to God Save the Queen. If you know any more than the first verse, just think about it. Raise your hand if you know the second, third, fourth verses of God Save the Queen. Isn't that interesting? How come none of us know? Sorry? Okay, so just for those of you who don't know, which seems to be most of us, because I didn't know. I had this event, and then I came home, and that night I got a hot flush, and this voice in my head said, "Do you know the original lyrics to God Save the Queen?" No, I don't know. So I went online, and I looked for them. And they're horrific. We sing away our individual sovereignty in that hymn, and we give it to our monarch. The first verse is God Save the Queen. The second verse is, O Lord our God, arise, scatter her enemies and make them fall, confound their politics, frustrate their knavish tricks, on thee our hopes we fix, God save us all. So we're praying to the power of the universe to give the Queen and the monarchy the power to destroy her enemies. The third verse suggests that we should have the universe give all its bounty to the Queen and her family, and whatever we need in terms of our personal bounty, we can just sort of stand at the bottom of the table of the monarchy with our open mouths and hope for some crumbs. That's what the third verse invokes. Now, if you know anything about the power of prayer, and I'm not talking so much about religion, I'm talking more about quantum physics and the power of attraction and the way that we think, speak, and listen our reality into existence. Yes? Good-ish. We'll still work on this, yeah? We're still working on this. It's fine. Don't worry. You'll get it by the end, I'm sure. I hope. For all our sakes. Everyone's heard all the way through this song. Everyone's heard it. Once, at least. You ever watched songs of praise when you were a child? You've heard it. You ever been to midnight mass? You've heard it. You ever been to a Church of England primary school? You've heard it. Yes, indeed. Perhaps before my time. Tiny bit before my time. So what happens is that when you hear the tune, the words that are embedded in your subconscious get sung out of you vibrationally. Yes? So even if you're not singing it, we as a people are constantly giving this energy, singing ourselves out of our own individual sovereignty, and continuing to give the monarchy power by accident. Now, people may have their stories and thoughts and feelings about NLP, and, you can see Darren Brown doing amazing things with it, and random people in the street giving their wallet and stuff. If it's used for dark purposes, it's not a pleasant thing. The media use it all the time in the way they do their adverts, of course. We know that. We've been programmed since birth through media, magazines, upbringings, schooling, and various other things. So we're already programmed. We're already brainwashed. The trick for us now is to unlearn nearly everything we know. Would you just shout out yes if you agree with that statement? Yes. Okay, right. This is a very exciting time for us now. Very exciting indeed. Because by unlearning what we used to know, we have the power as individuals and in groups, which is even more powerful, to rewrite the script of our physical environment. And that is one of the opportunities that is being offered right now for various different reasons. I don't want to go into all of them. Some of them are to do with NASA. Some of them are to do with the way the planet and the solar system is moving through space. There are some even further out theories than that some people believe, that we're actually part of an intergalactic society that we've been separated from for thousands of years and they're about to rejoin. I have no idea whether any of that's true, but what fun if it is! I mean, that's really quite radical, isn't it? Am I a crazy person? Perhaps. Doesn't really matter either way, as long as we stay grounded. Are we grounded? Just give me a second. I'm not. You might be. Just grounding. Fine. Great. Now, about 6 months ago, actually, before I do that, do you want to hear the new lyrics to God Save the Queen? I wish I'd love to have put them up on this screen. I didn't get the opportunity. But I'll send them to people who want them. There's going to be an opportunity later for you to buy my books. It looks like they're going to be on pre-order because I attempted to use Yodel to get them delivered here. Don't touch Yodel. Okay? But Ian sorted it out for me so that if you want to pre-order, you can do that after my talk. And once I've got your email address, I will send all of you, if you want it, as much information as I can about all the things that I've been researching and that I'm doing to really help find active new ways to create what we want. I don't know all of the conspiracies, but the ones I do know terrify me. I don't want to be terrified anymore. I'm bored of being scared, and I'm bored of fighting with banks, and I'm bored of fighting with the police. As it turns out, it was more fun to flirt with them than fight with them. That's another story. But we will get onto it in this hour. How long have we got? I've got so much to share. I'm so sorry. Right, 5:23. Right, we're a quarter of the way through. I need to really be zippy here. Right. Calling the human race back into noble space. This is our place. We are victorious, happy and glorious. Long may the feeling be with us, giving us this grace. Verse 2. May my true self arise, open my weary eyes, and may I see. Clear my cloudy mind, I am no longer blind. May human beings truly find who we can be. We now know who we are the choir, long may we sing. We will forget no more, we are the lion's roar, caretaking sea and land and shore, and our sovereignty. Thank you for that lovely acknowledgement. So as you can imagine, people who are embedded in the system might think that that is an anti-monarchy song. If you listen to the lyrics I wrote, it's not. It's just pro-human sovereignty. And we need to reclaim our sovereignty and learn what it means to be our own masters. Masters of our own destiny, masters of our own finance. Human beings are the only entities on the earth that pay to live. Doesn't anyone think that's weird? Okay, so no one thinks that's weird. Do you think it's weird? Excellent. Good. Hooray. Right. We've got videos to watch. We've got loads of stuff to do. Right. So, where are we? There's Bulcum. Okay, so I did a couple of belter outs. I buddied up with loads of the police. They were awesome to me because I was transparent with them. It was a tricky one because I had people who've been protesting and protecting things for years telling me, stop making friends with those boys in blue. They're PLOs. They're spies. They might work for common purpose. And I was going in script-free because I've never been in trouble with the police. So I didn't have any reason to assume that they were anything other than peacekeepers unless directly shown by them in that particular moment. So I was like, okay, fine, and I want them to facilitate peaceful protest. I want them to shut the road for 2 hours for 600 people. I'm going to have to be nice to them and tell them every plan I've got. So I did, and they were fantastic. There was a particular police officer, Mark Redbourne, who was just absolutely wonderful. If he hadn't been married to a lady, I would have asked for his hand. And I told him, and he was kind of chuffed in a bit of a weird way. We had a couple of hugs, got caught on camera, brilliant. Seriously, whether you're gay or straight, flirting with someone who's trying to lord authority over you is a marvellous way to disarm them. And that's also NLP, by the way. Oh, look, you're an opposite. Give me a hug. Come on, have a hug. Oh, sorry, your helmet's in the way. Shall we take it off and just put it on the ground? Ooh. There's your power there on the ground. It's nice with that helmet, isn't it? Look, your head's getting some sun. Brilliant. He was excellent. Anyway, so I did these two very successful events. And then there was this eviction day. West Sussex County Council said, we're evicting the camp tomorrow. The police were saying, we've put Section 14 in place. And I did the maths, and it looked like the eviction order was going to be able to carry it out in a 12-hour period because of the Section 14 from the police, Section 14 of the 1986 Public Order Act. Actually, at this point, just so, can I just have a show of hands if you went to Balcombe and experienced the Belted Out? Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you. Perfect. For those of you who didn't, if you haven't, this is what it looked like. I'm going to be really clever now with technology. Hang on. Let go. Yes. Then yeah, and then I press the space bar. Everyone knows why they're here. We're here because it feels like our governments are trying to force fracking on our country and into our water systems when we have clearly stated that we do not want it now, not ever. Is that right? Okay, great.
What is happening here today, this is an absolutely phenomenal turnout of people from literally all over the country to basically let it be known to all elected representatives and to the industry that fracking is not going to be tolerated in anyone's backyard in this country.
So, do not fight these changes as they spring into existence. They're here to pave the way for us so we may go this distance. The conduit is closing. It is time to take this deal. Time to wake up now from this dream we thought was real.
Standing up and singing for what matters to me, really, here along with hundreds of other people who are doing the same. It's like a dream come true to me, really. It matters. It's the most important thing I've ever done, I think, really, turning up here today.
We want them to hear us! Now shout! Now look up! They're watching from satellite!
Some birds, please.
It's MJ.
A few sheep. And did they fly in ancient times? Poison and waters run so free. And where their filthy race of doom, all England's present washed the sea. The sisters now, these dragons are wrong. They now remember midnight while. Leave the sea from happening air. All shall be friends till fracking's land. Till we have cleared these madness and all England's free and pleasant land. And let me hear
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. It showed the strength of feeling. It showed that this isn't just Balcombe. I mean, there are a lot of Balcombe people here. It shows that it goes well beyond Borkham, that this is a nationwide issue. For me, this is about grassroots democracy. There's a whole lot of people countrywide that don't want to see this industry taking off in a big way. And I think this is the beginning of people beginning to say, no, we don't want it. And when our officials, our elected representatives, are going to start listening to us.
This is potential ecocide. That's why we're here. So please, do whatever you can. Do it with social media. By all means, write to the Environment Agency. They're not listening, but at least we can say we did. Write to your MP. Get more bodies down here. Get it out there. Get it out there on Facebook. Invite everyone you know. We need to show that the vast percentage of the population of this country can see through the disingenuity, is putting it politely, of our ministers who are saying there is no evidence of harm.
Okay, so that was how I spent last summer. And it really did suck me in. Because when something this big calls you, as long as you can put down the parts of your own personal agenda that would otherwise take you away from such a cause, you do, you get sucked in. You know that feeling? Yeah, it's kind of. Can I just have you raise your hand if you have a full-time job? That you work for somebody else for a salary, 9-6, Monday, Friday, perhaps weekends. Keep your hands up for those. Okay, so more people than not are alternative in this room, is that correct? Good. It does mean that we are freer to become the hub for others to understand that they've got to bring their power back, they've got to bring their time back, they've got to bring their essence back. Working for a salary is a tricky thing to do because you're making somebody else's dreams come true. And money is a problem. Money is a problem. We all want more of it. A lot of us don't really like wanting money or needing money, and yet we find that nearly everywhere we go, not having it limits us. Yes? And how do we address the balance on that? You know, there are some people out there who are saying, I can't wait for the financial collapse. Half the world will starve to death if that happens. So actually, we don't really want that. If you actually look at the repercussions of an absolute financial collapse, I don't want that. I do want to see the balance changing, though. I really do. And in the last 4 months, I've become part of a movement that moves people from limitation to limitlessness. I could spend an hour talking just about that, but I'm going to just talk about... Remember we talked before and I mentioned I was going to talk about the difference between decision and choice? We're coming to that moment in a second. I haven't got time to talk about the movement, but what I would say is if you are interested in optimizing yourself in 5 ways, financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, using a system that operates online, offline, on the web and in the world, what I would ask you to do, if you've got a smartphone, just get it out of your pocket now and wave it in the air. And if you've got a dumb phone, do the same. I'm going to ask you all to switch your phones on. I know it's highly unethical. We'll be switching them off again in a minute. I'm going to give everybody a phone number. And if you want to be informed about how this movement works, I'm going to give you the bat phone number. And I'm going to ask you to simply text your first name, your surname, and an email address that you would like to receive an update on about this movement. I have become recently a member of their global expansion team. It's one of the reasons I'm in Malaga. And it is unlike anything I've experienced before. And it's causing massive and dramatic, measurable alterations in my life. It's very exciting, and I'll just wait for everyone to just switch their phones on. I'm going to talk about the distinction between choice and decision now. This is one of the first things that being in this movement taught me. It was about languaging skills. Right? Now, I pride myself on being a linguist. You know, I'm a poet. I'm a storyteller. Yes? I've got language at my disposal, at my fingertips. And yet I've been making plans on and off all my adult life that have not always come off as planned. You know, you lay it all out really neatly, And it still kind of falls apart. Or there are glaringly obvious bits that you should have seen and you didn't see. Yes? You know all these things? Don't worry about the beeps. I totally accept that's going to happen. It's fine. Language is either creative or destructive. Did you know that? Right, okay. Some people do, some people don't. But if I ask you to distinguish the difference between creative and destructive language, who could do that in this room with a categorical understanding? Me neither, up until recently. Here it is. If you look at the word decision, you've got lots of options, and you eventually end up with one. Yep. How do you end up with one? Nah, maybe. A decision, if you look at the word, the isian on the end of the word decision, and the ide on the end of the word decide, that's the same as the ide on the end of the word pesticide, suicide, genocide, matricide. You kill off all your options until you are left with one. That is the nature of decision. It is naturally a destructive process. Does that make sense? No. Thank you for you, by the way. What happened to everybody else?
Yeah, that's pensive.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Okay, so pensively then. So choice operates on a completely different fundamental rule system. Choice exists unto itself and has no reason for itself. Chocolate or vanilla? Chocolate. Why? Because I choose chocolate. Because I say so. Not because I prefer it. If I prefer it, it's a decision. Choice doesn't need a reason. Reasons are justifications, are they not? I did it because. No. Reasons and excuses all come from decision. Choice simply exists. And if you start to understand the fundamental distinction between choice and decision and start to make only choices in your life, creative process start to come and find you out of the ether and get you involved in things that would not otherwise be available to you because your frequency is altering. Does that sound believable? So it's about consciously learning to really focus the way you speak, what you say, how you think, and how you call what you want into your life. Distinction is the other. I've used that word several times now. Most people who are hearing today the word distinction would probably more understand and use the word definition. Yeah? You define something. I'm standing at a podium. I'm wearing a nice suit. This is defined as a nice suit. Well, that's debatable. I think it's a nice suit. When you lock something into language by defining it, you can hear the word finite, can't you, in the word definite. Yes? Finite means it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yet we live in an infinite universe, correct? So if we live in an infinite universe and then we use language to define things and lock them into a finite system, we actually prevent creative forces from flowing through like water in a waterfall. Instead, we try to capture the water and stick it in a glass and then wonder why after 20 days it's gone stagnant in the glass because it's no longer in flow. When we define things in language, the definition causes those things often to fall apart. And this is where distinction comes in. Where definition talks about a thing, distinction talks about the space, the empty space between the two things. Literally, if you're reading a book and you've got words in a book, the distinctions between the words are the spaces, right? And out of empty space, what can be created? Bingo. So over the last 6 months, I have been working very hard to fully re-energize and refocus myself on using distinction rather than definition, choice rather than decision, and a whole bunch of other things which started purely with languaging skills and then moved out into other areas. And I have been introduced to people who I am forming creative teams with, and we are building very exciting projects in the world out of choice, distinction, and a whole bunch of other things, which by the very nature of the creative-only infrastructure within the language, the framework that gets created in the physical system that gets built out of a conversation has the same level of structural integrity as the conversation did. Does that make sense? And is it plausible? This is where we can go. This is where I believe human society is being called to go. And so I'm going to give you a number now, and if you're interested, just open up a text message, put the number in, and then over the next 5 minutes, put your first name, surname, and an email address, and send it. Okay. The number is... actually, so yeah, 07540 564 495. That's the bat phone. And it will be the beginning of a conversation which you get to be in for as little or as long as you want, but at least you have the opportunity to really see what is being offered and how it works and how you can take what you're already building and optimize it by following, it's a frighteningly simple set of systems and rules to keep yourself focused and aligned. I can't quite describe it, nor am I going to try. Anyway, that's, I guess, the educational part over. Let's move back to the fun stuff. Sorry? Yes, I will. I'll send you the Jerusalem words, and I'll send you the calling the human race words as well. But people in the anti-fracking community have been singing them all over England and sending me videos, like in their living rooms, singing together. It's just extraordinary. But I'm not even a singer. I got arrested. So I was arrested that morning. There was this eviction. There was 25 bailiffs up the road. There was the police all around. We were standing in the driveway of the site. But the traffic was coming past. There were no lorries trying to come in and out. No one was actually in the way. And I couldn't stop singing. And I was almost crying because they were putting hydrochloric acid down. And nothing we were doing was making any difference at all. And there's all these bailiffs up the way. And this voice in my head and in my heart was just saying, don't stop singing, don't stop singing. So I was on a megaphone, someone was holding the megaphone, I was holding the mouthpiece, and we're doing Jerusalem, and then God Save the Queen, and then Jerusalem, back to back, back to back, back to back, while the police are going around trying to shout Section 14 of the Public Order Act out to everybody, because that's the bit that if people hear that Section 14, they can legally be moved across the road to the protest pen on the other side of the road, so that they can be managed peacefully like a herd of sheep. Out of the way of the, woo, with our banners, woo, yay, we're protesting, we feel so free, hooray. No way. Not on my watch. But I wasn't deliberately being outrageous, I was just singing. And then these three police are looking at me, and I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm thinking, brother to brother, heart to heart, don't stop singing, this is it. In a minute they're going to cry and take off their helmets, it's going to be amazing. No. You can see this isn't going to end well, right? So I finished a particular rendition of this Jerusalem, and suddenly I'm being, and I'm like, and you saw the pictures of me up there, you know, that was not like, oh, you know, and I went stiff as a board, I was being carted off, and I remember shouting out, arrested for singing, arrested for singing! You know, that was what the photograph was, me in mid-rah. And then I was very deliberate to say to the police, I did not understand what was being said to me, because you know, understand in legal terms means stand beneath, legally agree to, you know that? Yes, I do not stand under what you've just said. You know, mild claiming of sovereignty there, but if you don't know everything about sovereignty, which I don't, it's dangerous to start on that road, because you can mess yourself up, like, really quickly. So they took me off to a van, and then they took me to the police station, and then there was this tall policeman called Rob, who was terribly handsome. And this was at Crawley police station, so there's about 15 police behind the desk. And then there's this Rob chap, and there's this lovely sergeant lady behind the desk who's been so engaging. I mean, it was like, under different circumstances, I'd love to be friends with you, lady. I didn't feel guilty of anything, so I was just happy to share my joy, and it was terribly exciting being arrested, you know, And anyway, this Rob, he kneels down like this. He's got his hands on my ankle. And he looks up at me and he says, I'm really sorry, it's just what we've got to do, I've got to go all the way up your inside thigh, you're not going to like it. And before I could stop myself, I said, want to bet? 15 police nearly wet themselves behind the desk. He went scarlet. And although I was the arrestee and he was the policeman, the power shifted dramatically. And I was just standing there feeling like a very happy boy, looking down at this rather handsome man in a uniform. I mean, what could be better on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday morning? It was brilliant. No, I was determined not to feel constricted or upset or discombobulated, and I just thought I'm going to show them what joy looks like. Even now, this is joy. Deal with it, quit your job and follow me, you know, that... So, how long have we got? I'm loving this. Are you loving this? I've got half an hour. Awesome. Hooray! Sorry. That's the inner child. That was about 4, just so you know what you just saw. If your inner child needs to come out to play, let it out. It's so much healthier. Doctors will call it schizophrenia. I say it's a healthy way to live. Sidetrack myself so easily. It's your fault, so we know. You're laughing. You're giving me encouragement. So anyway, then I went into this police, and they were like, oh, you've got to take your trousers off because you've got an elasticated waistband that you could strangle yourself with. So they made me wear these paper bloody trousers. Literally, they were made of, like, I don't know, like paper. And as I was being taken off this cell, I realised that there was going to be nothing for me to do. And I didn't know how long I was going to be there. So I said, well, I'm a poet and a storyteller, and I need a pen and paper. They said, well, we're not going to let you have an elasticated waistband. We're certainly not going to let you have something you can stab yourself with, literally. And I said, oi, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? I want to do some writing, sort me out. And because I'd been so flirtatious, outrageous, and charming already, there wasn't really any reason to say no to me, and I didn't look like, you know, someone who might try and harm themselves. So they gave me a blunt pencil and some bits of paper. And I went into my cell. And then I wrote this over 2 hours. And I called it Arrested for Singing. I may cry. Bear with me if I do. It is quite emotional. Today, I was arrested for the power of my voice. I didn't get arrested by design or willful choice. They arrested me for singing with my blessed heart and soul. Do they understand that freedom for humanity is my goal? They say I was arrested for ignoring what they said, but that wasn't how it happened in my heart or in my head. I was standing in the crowd when the music set me free, and in that heightened state, let me explain what I could see. 3 men standing near me in the bustle and the noise as we sang for hope and freedom. I was singing with the boys. I looked into their eyes and I sang with all my heart. And in that breath, I knew that we'd been brothers from the start. I did not see their helmets, did not register their word. The lyrics and vibration of the anthem's all I heard. I did not see their authorship. All I saw was kin. And my heart confirmed this truth and welcomed these 3 brothers in. The beauty of this moment was both empty and complete. My eyes were streaming tears and I couldn't feel my feet. And then, without a warning, I was pounced upon and grabbed. I started then to understand. The understanding stabbed. These brothers work for forces that care nothing for the heart. And though the policing uniform's presentable and smart, it's like this cell I'm sitting in, solid, square and bleak. No room in here for questions or the answers that we seek. The uniform, the cell, I think they truly are the same. And in this feeling, I let go the need to point and blame. Our brothers and our sisters, they are trying to do their best in a system that is broken and that needs to be addressed. But how does one address an institution of control that's been corrupted by an entity that does not have a soul? The law has been corrupted by financial corporate might. But no one is responsible. There's no one here to fight. So how do we say no to this corporate agenda? Who, if not the police, will be humanity's defender? As I sit here in this prison cell, I know not what to do, though I feel the answer stirring in the hearts of me and you. Thank you very much. So, I finish writing this poem, and then I think, I don't know why, but I've got 2 more sheets of paper. I'm going to write it out again a second time, because I've got a feeling if I don't, I'm going to lose the original, and I don't ever lose an original. I don't ever let my first draft go away. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. And then at 5 o'clock, and I'd been in this cell now for about 5 hours, sitting just looking at the ceiling and the big round thing in the corner, which probably was watching me on 17,000 cameras or whatever. Go away. This man came in. He said, hello, my name's Brian. I'm your solicitor. I'm from Kelly's. I'm like, wow, I didn't even make a phone call. Marvellous. What do I do? He said, what is that? I said, it's a poem I've just written. He's like, you wrote a poem? I'm like, yes, I'm a poet. And now I can say I'm a real poet because I've written a poem in prison, you know. And he said, well, tell it to me. So I did. And he just sort of went, holy crap. That's a witness. That's a prepared statement. CID are interviewing you in 15 minutes. I said, what? He said, well, you've now been marked as a person of interest. So your exit interview is going to be handled by CID. They're going to tap your phone, probably. They've already hacked into your Facebook. And you are now being watched as a sort of a ringleader or a this or a that or the other because they can't believe that this whole thing isn't orchestrated by a small group of devious people. It's amazing, isn't it, that they really think that? It's unthinkable. Well, they do think that. Anyway, so he said, CID is interviewing, and what I'm going to recommend to you as your legal counsel right now is that when we get into the CID interview, you read him this poem as your prepared statement and then answer no comment to every other question. And my heart just sang, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do that. That's so naughty. He said, you can and you will. This is brilliant, and this covers your arse. This is what happened to you, isn't it? This is exactly how those moments running up to your arrest happened, isn't it? I said, yes, it is. He said, then it's your prepared statement. It's brilliant. I want a copy for my wife. Can we photocopy it before we leave? I said, yeah, all right. We got into CID. I read the poem. He then asked me loads of questions. I tell you, have you ever done that thing when you're a kid where you're trying to eat a donut and you're not allowed to lick your lips? Okay, imagine that. 10 times worse. And their CID people are brilliant. They've got nice suits on, they're charming and charismatic and witty, and they try and do the thing, and he was asking me all these questions, and I'm like, hey, no comment, hey, no comment, hey, no. It was like I had some sort of, physical... It was really hard. I mean, I like to talk. You can imagine how hard it was, right? I mean, it was really hard. Because I had answers to every question. This is the point. I had answers to every question, and he told me don't answer them anyway because he's going to try and build a case against you. And if you answer the questions without working out how he puts them together in his scaffolding, you won't know what sort of structure he's building out of the answers that you give. And I thought about that, and I thought, right, okay, fair enough, no comment, no comment. Finally, the interview was over. I left. 3 police said, can we have photocopies of the poem? We've heard about the poem. I mean, all the rules just went out the window because it was me being a bit of a joke, on purpose, That's the best way to, if you know that you can be subject to ridicule yourself. Because then people are laughing at you, with you. It comes from being bullied, and if you can learn how to turn it on its head, it means you can stand on a stage and potentially have brain freeze in the middle of a poem like yesterday and not collapse into a puddle. It's brilliant. So, where did we get to? We did that, I left, then this whole saga and the court dates, and they cancel, and then some cop who has to give evidence against me wants to go on a holiday, and all these people, these witnesses are being called and then dropped again. They messed us around for months, eh? And eventually we had a 3-day trial. Now, in preparation for this trial, I thought, what am I going to do? We've got quite an interesting Section 21 order happening on our home, right, which was a completely separate issue and technically nothing to do with the fracking, though I'm not completely sure. And there was even one day when my name was in 2 different courtrooms in the same building at the same time, one with the Section 21 order on my home with 5 other housemates, and then in the fracking over here. It was like, God clearly wanted me in that room that day. There was 2 different angles that I was being pulled into the same building in Brighton on 2 different cases that were conversations that individually had been going on for months each. It was so unlikely. It was like being in a film or a book or something. It was, and life has become like that now. It's like a story that I'm in, but I'm also writing it. Is that right? Yes, I think so. There's a poem about that. Actually, we should probably do the poem now. It's called Happy Shopper. Shopping's a delight for me, a thing I love to do. But I do not shop for others, so I cannot shop for you. I go shopping in the week, at the weekend, at night. I go shopping when it's raining. I go shopping when it's bright. I've shopped before on Christmas Day, at Easter, at Lent. I shopped before when I was broke and couldn't pay my rent. I do not need a reason to go shopping every day, for it's something that I do in a constant sort of way. I shop for fun and merriment. I shop for conversation. I shop for disappointment, and I shop for irritation. I shop for new experience in pleasure and in pain. Occasionally I shop for loss, but mostly it's for gain. I've been a constant shopper since the day that I was born. But I didn't always know this fact. I used to feel worn. Life felt circumstantial, like a massive game of chess in which other players' moves always got me in a mess. In truth, I felt a victim. I experienced my life as a story someone else was writing, full of pain and strife. Things would happen to me, and I felt I had no say. I remember often thinking, I don't want to go this way. But I went there, nonetheless, to that place of the insane, the place we choose to fight against the things we can't explain. I lived for several years there, fighting in the dark, a child of abandonment, a dog without a bark. And on the darkest day, I surrendered to the fight. And the moment that I did, I was given clear sight. I looked around and, startled, saw that everything was new. The moment had refreshed my mind to show me what was true. I saw that I'm the writer of my story, of my play, and that was how I learned that I am shopping every day. And now that I am conscious, I buy only what I need, for my soul is mine to nourish and to nurture and to feed. Things no longer happen to me, now they happen for me. I'm loving every moment, and the moments, they adore me. Everything that happens is a thing that I have bought. Every single action, every single thought. So when a moment brings me disappointment, grief, or shame, I do not shop for justice, or for pity, or for blame. I remember that I shopped for this experience at hand, and I let those feelings run through me, like water through the sand. All of us are shopping. It's a thing we love to do. We can shop for what is false, or we can shop for what is true. And when we know we're shopping, and this moment is the shop, we can choose the final word and the very last full stop. Okay, so I thought, how am I going to prepare myself for court? Well, I love Netflix. I do have a small addictive personality. Could be smoking, though I've pretty much given up that now. If you gave me a cigarette earlier outside, you'll know that's not completely true today. On the whole, it's true. Oh dear, suboptimal statement. Forget that. That doesn't count for anything. So addictive personality. Netflix. Okay, so I don't know if you do this, but if you've got some free time and you can justify in your head why it's okay to discover a new series where there's 5 seasons with 24 episodes in a season that you need to watch right now, and you just sort of dive in and swim through this incredible adventure or story that lasts if you were watching it real time, it would have taken you 5 years to watch it, right? So I discovered The Good Wife. Anyone know The Good Wife? Alicia Florrick. Go! She's brilliant. Anyway, it's basically, he's a politician, the wife works in a legal firm, and it follows their story over several years. They've got a couple of kids, and some stuff happens. But there's a lot of scenes in it in courtrooms. So I'm like, right, this is my homework for court. I'm going to look at all these scenes in courtrooms, and I'm going to watch very, very carefully, deliberately. Although it's American rather than English, I will be able to mine for the gold in this TV show, because it does come from reality, in fact, how prosecution works, how defence works, and what they're going to attempt to do to me. Because not only am I not going to lose, I'm going to bloody win this one in style. I was singing on the side of the road, and they're trying to shut down human freedom. Let's do this. So that was my wonderful reasoning. And I got to watch loads of episodes a day, eating popcorn and, just Ian, yes, it's all right, I've got an addictive personality, but this is homework. Nom, 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 nom. Fine. Self-justification is a marvellous tool. I have to big, yay, self-justification, woo. It doesn't really work, but, you know, when you're in it, you find wonderful excuses for everything. So anyway, I probably watched 4.5 seasons of this over a month, 6 weeks. It was every day. I was living in the world of these characters. My study and, you know, the work and the talks with the solicitor was like a secondary story that was going on. The real story of my life was this TV show. And anyway, then it got to court. And the first 2 days were agony because it was like lots of people talking about you. Not to you, about you. People mainly talking about... my barrister, though, a chap called Tom Wainwright, lives in London. Kelly's, the solicitors, was linked with Garden Chambers, I think they're called, in London. So this amazing, tiny little guy with short dark hair and very blue eyes and a tongue like this samurai sword. He was incredible. It's like, wow, little tiny Tom is like a warrior for Simon. Just brilliant. Anyway, he basically battered every witness who was speaking against me. And then we had Mark Redbourne, the cop that I love. So he was called as a witness against me because he was there on the morning of my arrest, and he had said to me, Simon, you're not going to cause any trouble today, are you? And I said, no, Mark, I'm just here to sing. And he said, you know, there's a section 14 in place. And I said, yeah, but I'm just here to sing. Now, the police were trying to get me that I knew section 14 already existed. And then what messed them up in court is that I'm like, yes, of course I knew it existed. It's been all over the internet and I've written about it. You're trying to prove me on some technicality that I'm already agreeing with. But my understanding of what it meant that section 14 existed and yours are totally different things, and now I'm going to explain why, and you can sod off. I was a lot politer than that. But Mark, it was amazing because he was there in his uniform being asked to explain whatever he remembered that would show why I was a guilty boy. And everyone in the room could see him sweating under the collar because he felt like he was being asked to tell on a best friend. It was amazing. I was sitting behind the little glass thing having a little sob of just general gratitude, really, actually, because it felt like an exquisite thing to be involved in. I mean, I feel really blessed to have had this experience. I really, really do. And then he got cross-examined by Tom. That's the thing. If the prosecution calls a witness, my little Tom can take them apart afterwards. So he was like, so, Mr. Redbourne, you mentioned that you spoke to Simon earlier and he called you Mark. Does that mean you two were on first-name terms? Right. And would you say that you regard each other fondly? Is it not true that you also hug from time to time? Because I told him all what happened. I told Tom everything. I told him I love Mark. And that Mark will be brilliant to cross-examine. So Tom was like, brilliant, we'll use that, that's great. And, you know, how close did you get to each other? It's like, wow, you know, no one would believe it. I'm going to have to write it in a book. Yes, that will happen. So there was that. And then it came to me trying to get my poem in. Because it had been in my argument, it was my prepared statement. So then it's the judge saying, well, Mr. Crabtree, very sort of no-nonsense kind of man. He was, we don't do poetry in court. And Tom was like, yes, and it's his prepared statement. And it describes what happened in the 3 minutes running up to his arrest and is therefore not only admissible, but important to the case. And the judge was like, yes, but, you know, Mr. Welsh has talked about this Zen zone and this bubble and this heart thing. And that when looking into the eyes of 3 arresting officers, not being able to distinguish the difference between them and, as he put it, 3 tall grannies. It just came out of my mouth, you know, and that was what the newspaper ran off with. I mean, I looked like a freak in the media. It was terrible. You know, got a lot of phone calls, though. It was great. And he said, and if Simon Welsh attempts to do that again, I mean, obviously, if someone moves into an altered space in the heart, there's going to need to be an expert witness to actually say that that is happening. If he's trying to recreate this in my courtroom, I'm not an expert witness, so I don't want to hear the poem. So Tom's like, Mr. Welsh is not attempting to recreate that. And I said, yes, you know, I kept on trying not to call him Your Honour, because as a magistrate, you just called him Sir. And he was a good guy, Mr. Crabtree. He was a good guy. And he said, I said, Mr. Crabtree, I am going to tell a poem, if you let me, to illustrate what happened in those moments. Effectively, it'll be me giving more testimony in rhyme. That's it. I can't manufacture the Zen zone. And he was like, well, you may tell it then, but please try to refrain from any emotional expression and read it in as monotone a tone as you can. And so I'm like, wow, no one's ever asked me to do that before. This is so weird. So I started, and then about halfway through I thought, oh, stuff it. If I cry, I cry. It's going to get my heart in the face. So I just went... But I kept it calm enough that he didn't stop me, because I knew if I went too far, he would just shut me down. And I didn't want that. I don't like being shut down by anybody, ever. So you're great, thanks. Give yourself a round of applause, please, right now. You. Yes! Thank you. I'm feeling very, very, very well received by you right now, so I just wanted to express that gratitude, because it's awesome. If you were to optimise that statement, it would sound like this. On the subject of how long you've got, rather than not being shut down. One's destructive, the other's creative. I love you too, Daisy. We have work to do. And I do indeed have 7 minutes. Right, I'm going to be speedy and keep it quick. Gosh. Can you give me any more time, Ian? Like tomorrow or Monday or something? Right, 7 minutes. Okay, so... I told the poem, he sort of frowned his way through it, and he looked at me and said, Mr. Welsh, you did inject a little emotion into that. You could see he was trying not to smile, though. It was brilliant. Because he didn't know what was going on in his room. It was all anarchy, but not spoken about. It was just energetic disobedience, you know. And then I had the prosecution. What a slippery man, Mr. Richards. He had slick back hair and a horrid pinstripe suit with a lining on the inside that he kept on wanting to sort of show off a little bit, you know. And it's just like, oh God, and no, it was just, yeah, you know, you could imagine he might do that and then there would be oil and he'd have to kind of... I'm not being nice about him, he's probably a lovely man, his wife was just about to have a baby, he's probably lovely outside of that job. Oh, by the way, I have a little aversion therapy technique that I use when I slag somebody off, or myself, or have any other kind of suboptimal thought, I ping it. Ow! Ooh. And then, wait, and then I replace the suboptimal thought with its optimal equivalent. So in this case, it would be Mr. Richards is an awesome father and an excellent husband. And then I have to kiss my wrist. And it trains me out of suboptimal thinking. It's awesome. Right, so you're getting all my secrets today. You really are. This is excellent value. I mean, I don't even share this with friends because they'd think I was weird. So anyway, this 2-hour cross-examination, it was extraordinary. It was like this. And I was standing there and I was listening to every question and he was getting so exasperated because I understood from watching so many episodes of The Good Wife that what he was doing was trying, just like CID had done, to construct a series of questions, my answers to which would fulfill a framework that would make me look guilty. And so if I can answer all his questions accurately outside of his silly, greasy hair scaffolding. He's got lovely hair, he's got lovely hair, he's got lovely hair. Okay, right. I know, I'm sure he really is lovely. Don't say it. I can't, my wrist is hurting now. I'm just be really careful. Sorry. So his second to last question was, Mr. Welsh, can you at least agree that you gave the arresting officers the impression that you were ignoring them? And I heard it, and I saw his little and I'm like, no, I can't. If I say yes to that I gave them the impression, it's actually, the impression is a gift from me to them, and then it becomes my responsibility what they made up in their heads about what I was doing. And as it came out of my mouth, I thought, bloody hell, that's true. He was trying to get me to incriminate myself with something so seemingly innocuous. Can you at least admit that you gave your arresting officers the impression that you were ignoring them? Doesn't that sound like a harmless question? Yeah, well, I suppose I did. Got you. Bang. Done. That's it. One wrong answer in 2 hours, and they would have had me, basically. And he was doing it all the way through. But that was the one that really shone out, and I just looked at him. No, don't. You see, the training really works. You see that, yeah? It's really good. You know, I want to live in an optimal world, so a little bit of self-harm, you know, it goes a long way. Done properly. So, and then at the end, his final question was, I submit to you that basically the reason that you answered no comment to all of CID's questions was because you didn't have a story, and now you've had a lawyer and a solicitor, and you've got all the answers, and you're giving your story now, and blah, 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 blah. And I just looked at him and I said, and I wasn't trying to be flippant, but he didn't ask me a question. He said, I submit to you that. So I just looked at him and I said, Mr. Richards, you can submit to me whatever you want. Doesn't mean I'm going to accept it. And the judge said, Mr. Welsh, please answer the question. I said, he hasn't asked the question. At least he has. I'm like, oh, so hang on, is he saying, are you making this up? Can I have this paraphrased for me? Because I submit to you that blah, 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 blah really isn't a question to me. Is he asking me if I made this up? And the judge said, yes, he is. And I just turned, I said, Mr. Richards, as we started this, I was asked to put my hand on the Bible. I was asked, do you believe in God? I said yes. That should be enough. What is going on here? And I claimed my righteous anger in rather an affected and a gregarious way, admittedly. And it was weird. It was like writing a script or being in a play. And at the end, then we called time, like a match. And the points were added up, and then the prosecution, the defence, they had the thing, you know, with their closing arguments, and we set a date for the final thing in a different town, which was about 2 weeks ago. And it was scary, and lots of people came to support me. Thank you. And he just made me cry. He just sat there in his judge's chair, and all the people were there, coming back together again. Like, it was like a reunion, but like not. And my mum was there. She saw that she did the whole thing with me. She was like, warrior mum. And he said, Mr. Welsh, when you spoke about the heart space, I really didn't believe you. And over the time of getting to know and understand you, and having heard the witness statements from people in your village who say that you gave the village a voice, and listening to the way you have argued your case, I have to concede that what you said about not being able to recognize those officers while they were speaking to you may be true. You are an unusual defendant, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. You are free to go. I have so much more to share, but this seems like a really good ending point for now. We've got about 30 seconds before 1:15. What? So, you can't, did you ask for this? Oh, no, you can't have it. No, I still have to, you know, get myself trained out of these suboptimal habits that I have. When I'm done. Oh, that's when you're done, it's when you do it and it just snaps. And then you're like, oh, it's the end, I'm free. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But at some point, this will, you know, snap. What I will say as a final sort of for now is I've got business cards. If you have requested to be given more information about being limitless and what it means to be on the global expansion team, you took that number, you sent a text with your first name, surname, and email address. I have books to sell. Yodel are less than reliable. So the books aren't here. However, Ian has sorted it out for me so that if you want to buy a copy of my book, which is first edition, hardback, it's called All Hail the 21st Century. It's a journey out of darkness and into light, which is very important. 18 poems, going from quite a narcissistic, angry, embittered point of view about how ugly and screwed up the world is, through these stories and adventures that kind of show you actually that there might be a silver lining, or that maybe things aren't completely black and white, and by the end, there's this sense of hope. The whole book has a CD in the back, which has all the audio recorded on the CD. It's £20, which will include postage and packing. Yodel might turn up tomorrow with a box of books. There'll be 40 in the box. I do have more than that, but I can send them to you at home. So £20. I would encourage you, though, not to just get one, but to get 4 or 5, really. Because all your friends are going to want them. They're first editions, and there aren't that many left. Thank you so much. You have been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Simon. I thought I was a natural flirt, but now I feel like a complete introvert. Oh my God. Yes, thank you, Simon, for your energy and your brilliance and your childlike enthusiasm for everything. I think as part of, well, we're all truthers, as it were, and naturally, I think probably we're all quite creative because you naturally have to think outside of the box if you're part of the truth movement. So I do think that love, poetry and music can disarm the authorities, as Simon has proved. Now, we have a treat, and I'm going to call Simon back up here because we have Jerusalem, your version, ready to put up here. But I'm going to give you the mic because I'm not going to sing it. Then we're going to dash for dinner at 7:15.
Wow, what an honour. Back so soon. How are you? Lots of different but all optimal sounding answers. Wonderful. Are you feeling good? Yes. Excellent. So, oh, how lovely. So the words are going to come up. I just want to tell you very briefly how it happened. So I wrote this tune, this New Jerusalem, and then I had this dream, probably about a week after I'd written it. It was already being sung on the site at Vulcan. Ah, such a beautiful tune. And I had this dream that I was in a kitchen in the countryside, and William Blake was in the kitchen making himself a cup of tea. He was at the counter, and he was not facing me, so he just had this long black coat on, and I knew it was William Blake, but I didn't see his face. And I sort of crept up sort of behind him, and I'm like, Mr. Blake, I hope you don't mind I took such a liberty with your words. And without turning around, he said, you do insist on calling me Mr. Blake. You weren't this formal when we were children. And then I woke up very fast in my bed, in kind of hot and cold blizzards, whatever they are. And I remembered just very, very clearly that when I was about 3, I had an invisible best friend called William, who was 4. And he was my invisible best friend till I was about 6. And he didn't get any older. He was always 4. And then one day he vanished. And I had this feeling that we were, because that was where all my weird stories and seeing things that weren't there. And when you read his poems of innocence and experience, you can tell that he had that kind of imagination that went off and saw fairies and witches and goblins and angels and spirits and all sorts of other things. And I think we were childhood friends, so I feel very comfortable sharing with William. I do want to call him Mr. Blake, though. Right. Do we have the lyrics? Is that correct? Oh, I'm just saying. Hang on, I thought you said we had the lyrics. Oh, right. Oh, God, help me. And did they frack in ancient times, poisoning waters once so clean? And were there filthy rigs of doom on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the only face of truth shine forth upon our clouded hills? And do the frackers know time is up to use their dark satanic drills? God, you've got to love it when you feel that. Come join us here and sing your song.
sing of the justice you desire. Assist us now, these frackers are wrong. We now remember we're the choir. Can't really belt that out. We will not cease from camping here, nor shall we rest till fracking's banned, till we have kicked these frackers out of England's green and pleasant land. But we will kick them out with kisses and hugs. Attacked. How many other cities in the world will be attacked? What exactly is a frack? Is their agenda clean? Are they putting poisonous liquids in the ground that can't be seen? Is it true that HIV is not a real disease? Was the lunar landing stage? Will someone tell me, please? I do not mean to sound like a freak or a fanatic, and I know I have this tendency to lean towards dramatic, but something really isn't right upon our little home. We can hide ourselves in incense, dreadlocks, build a geodome. But something's coming, something big. Will aliens arrive? Do we all have to go to Denver Airport to survive? Is Queen Elizabeth a lizard? David Icke insane? Do the Anunnaki want to flush our spirit down the drain? If the end is near, then should I stop watching porn? As we near galactic zero, will we be reborn? Why do they put fluoride in the water that we drink? Why did they ban magic mushrooms? What do people think? When I look around, I see a system near collapse. But mostly I'm not scared because I know the truth. Perhaps. It's not a guarantee, and it may not work for you, but I'd like to share it now if you're prepared to hear me through. I know that I've been ranting, but I've got a point to make. This is only my opinion, but it makes me feel awake. None of it is relevant. All these epic questions. No one has the answers. At our best, we have suggestions. The future isn't written. It is ours to craft and shape. It makes no difference if we came from alien or ape. The world could blow apart, or we could be enslaved by a microchip that switches off if we're not well behaved. The golden age could start today, soft and slow, to tease us. It could turn out that we're immortal. That would surely please us. But whether it's a suitcase nuke, a riddle, or a lie, the price for being human is the body seems to die. But body death is not the end. This life is just a fraction of what's really going on in this cosmic chain reaction. The earth is rising constantly to meet a new vibration, a density that's bringing forth the age of co-creation. I think we're all rising with it. Does this feel true? The end times are aligning us so we can all get through? I think the age of separation's coming to an end. The cosmic heart is waking. Intuition is our friend. So though we're still perplexed by questions, ego-driven doubt, the ego is a tool that I could not do without. When I let my heart's vibration tell my ego gently that I do not need a bigger penis or to drive a Bentley, it also tells my ego that its help is now required. And please to stop this fighting as we're all a little tired. Heart can drive the instrument I call the human being. Ego can co-navigate and help the heart with seeing. Heart can help the ego feel, always be in flow, and together they will co-create the world I wish to know. When I think of life like this, those questions do not matter. Answered questions only serve the need for ego chatter. The truth is that we do not need to know the ins and outs. All we need to do is let the heart dispel our doubts. One more. He's got 4 left.
it was such a pleasure to share to such... In the limitless experience that I'm living these days with this group that I've become part of and being on this global expansion team of something that I can't really describe. That's why I gave you the phone number, just so you can start to be in the conversation and see what it is for you. I learned a new distinction. I love speaking things into existence, but I have learned in the last 6 months that the speaker only exists if the listener is there. So what I'm starting to understand is that things are born into existence not so much through speaking, but actually more through listening. So you guys, all of you, are listening me into existence. And thank you. Someone just said thank you to me. I thank you back, all of you, for listening me into existence in this moment. I feel priceless. And that's because you are, and we are reflecting each other, and it feels extraordinary. Thank you. And we have dark materials to discuss, and it is also time to celebrate. Because if we understand that time is quantum and not linear, this is just circumstance playing out to a beautiful future that we already live in, and our future selves are calling us forth as agents of spirit. Clear? Yeah. So... And some people struggle with that, and I struggle with that. You know, this is me at my optimal, absolutely right now, on form. And sometimes I am suboptimal, and I have doubts and fear and worry, and I listen to negative thought forms in my head, and I don't even want to ping my little band. I'm just pissed off and sulking. Okay, it's not always cut and dried. And I have gorgeous, wonderful friends around me and an amazing support structure to allow me to step back into optimal vibration quickly, whilst in the middle of a breakdown. And a breakdown really is just a breakthrough waiting to happen, so we can celebrate the future in advance whilst having a breakdown, and suddenly we find ourselves rejoicing in the midst of chaos and collapse, which is awesome, because everything then can be celebrated. You don't have to celebrate just the good bits. You can actually learn to celebrate absolutely everything as it's happening live in the world, and that is going to create the world that we all are already starting to live in. So this last poem, possibly last poem, I mean, I really do have an abundant supply, so it's great, it's fine. I'm going to tell you Nicholas's dream. It's dedicated to my father, who's called Nick. He was a teacher at Eton College for 40 years. And when I was a child, I often saw him doubting himself as a teacher and only really getting that he was an incredible teacher, quite close to retirement. And I thought about this. You know, we step into our greatness slowly over our lives, don't we? And we learn as we go along. And sometime nearer the end, we learn that we could have celebrated earlier rather than beating ourselves up and doubting ourselves. And I'm 35, and I'm getting that I can bloody well celebrate now. You know, I don't need to wait till I'm 60 or 70 to realize that I could have been a little bit gentler with myself. I'm learning to do it now. And my invitation to everyone in this room who isn't already doing that is start now. We are our own harshest critics, without a doubt. And as soon as we stop criticizing ourselves, the criticism that we think we're getting from people outside disappears. And it was only ever a reflection of how we felt about ourselves. It wasn't real in the first place. Who would have thought? I mean, loads of people actually have to die and then realize outside of space-time, oh, it was a dream. I could have got lucid. You know, in a lucid dream, you can manipulate the dream while you're in the dream world. Yeah? But I don't lucid dream anymore. I haven't lucid dreamed since I was about 10 years old. But when I was a kid, I used to fly off mountains and get wings and do whatever I wanted, and I could do it. I haven't had a lucid dream for years. But what's happening to me now is I'm getting a lucid life. Which is very, very good. So this is a poem about faith. And ironically, yeah. Okay, 4 more and you're done. So I'll do one more poem. I think, probably. We'll see how it goes. We'll just keep checking in. Me and you. Wicked. He's wicked. This is a poem about faith. It's called Nicholas's Dream, and I'm going to make another prize draw offer. Oh, by the way, we have to congratulate Wendy, because although that poem had a little glitch in it yesterday, I got back to my table and Wendy said, was it this? She turned a little book round and she'd written the name of a movie, and she was correct. So if you've already gone out and purchased a book or 5, I do encourage 5, obviously. You know, great. Wendy's going to get one, which I'm going to send to her, unless Yodel comes through tomorrow and the books arrive, and I'll just give her one. I'm going to give a second book to anybody who, after this poem, can guess what movie it comes from. Not a word over there, lady. So this is a different movie to the one that was suggested yesterday. And it's Nicholas's dream. Yes, there's a scene in the movie that birthed this entire poem. Nicholas was 30 when he heard the voice of God. He'd been brought up an atheist, so hearing God was odd. It came in through a dream in the sound of cobalt blue, and everything it said to Nicholas, he knew was true. The voice spoke out in ripples, and it made him want to cry as it whispered in his heartbeat that he didn't have to die, that the path of men and women is to grow their angel wings and to operate their earth life from the interwoven strings of the universal lattice weave that holds this world together, that to live thus on the earth plane is to live a life forever. And Nicholas beheld this message back into his life. He quit his job, he sold his home, he kissed and left his wife. He climbed into the mountains and he built himself a shack in which he made a bed of straw on which to lie upon his back. At dawn, he rose and washed himself beside the mountain stream. And every night he prayed to know the meaning of the dream. He'd watch the stars by dark and sing the sun up every morn. Then he'd walk along the cliff edge feeling peaceful but forlorn. The distance from the cliff top to the canyon floor below was a measure that the young man had a long way still to go. Nicholas was sure his angel wings were somewhere near, but the week became a month, and the month became a year. The year in its turn became a decade and beyond, and Nicholas began to think that maybe he'd been conned. He'd sit upon the cliff edge every day and every night, praying for his angel wings with all his human might. Let me be the angel of the mountains and the sea. Let me be the servant of the world's humility. Let me be the answer to the sorrow of the land. Let me be the consciousness of every grain of sand. Let me be an angel whilst I'm still a human being. Why have you forsaken me? What am I not seeing? But God did not reply. He was obviously busy. Nicholas felt sick with rage. The feeling made him dizzy. Here he was at 45, content to serve the earth. Yet here he sat despondent, of no value, of no worth. That night, he lay awake on his simple bed of straw, when suddenly there came a knock at Nicholas's door. "Who is it?" he called aloud, his blanket round him tight. "Who do you think it is?" said God. "I'm coming in, all right?" And there stood God, quite plainly, on the threshold of the shack, and Nicholas could only lie there, speechless, on his back. God sat down and looked around the shack with shining eyes. It seemed to Nicholas that God was made of fireflies, a buzzing, a vibration, a wave of coloured sound. He could see it in the ceiling, he could feel it in the ground. "What did I do wrong?" he said. "I've given you my life. I left my job and home for you. I even left my wife." "Yes," said God, "I know you did. But did I ask you to? I want you to be honest, to be happy, to be true. I want you to embrace that you're an angel here and now. So grow your wings. Come fly with me." "But God, I don't know how." "Well," said God, "the trick." And then he vanished from the shack. And Nicholas sat up appalled. "No, wait, don't go, come back." But God had gone again, and Nicholas felt quite alone. He lay back down, dumbfounded, with a dark, deep-hearted groan. His sleep that night was broken, and the next night, and the next. His days felt almost stagnant. He was desolate and vexed. He sat upon the mountainside and daily asked to fly. He asked God to release him from his curse, to conquer sky. He asked to be rewarded, for he practiced every day. He'd sit atop those cliffs and watch the aerial display of the falcon and the eagle and the buzzard in the air. And by the age of 93, he'd all but lost his care. To Nicholas, it mattered not now if he grew his wings. He'd learnt to find contentment in the day's more simple things, in the water that he drank, in the food he grew and ate, in the meditative calm he found within the figure 8, in the daybreak, in the dusk, in his walks atop the cliff, that the practice of his yoga kept his joints from getting stiff. And finally, one eve, as Nicholas lay down to rest, he heard the gentlest voice of God. Nicholas, get dressed. It's time for you to journey home. Night will be here soon. Your body's at its end and needs to die beneath the moon. But if you grow your angel wings before the sun goes down, you can stay on earth forever. You can wear the angel's crown. Put your clothes on. Hurry now. Go sit upon your throne. Watch the sunset one last time. And no, you're not alone. So Nicholas obeyed, put his clothes on, left the shack, and slowly climbed the jagged cliffs, his body like a sack. He could feel the weight of years fast descending on his limbs, like the darkness round a candle, as it weakens, as it dims. He sat upon his favourite piece of cliff and watched the sun, and tried to cast his mind back to how all this had begun. When suddenly, from farther down the cliff, he heard a sound, like a whinny and a whoop. But there was nobody around. The whoop became a scream of joy, the laughter of the wild, and Nicholas could swear that he was looking at a child, a little girl with golden hair. Her eyes were blue and bright. Her arms were stretched out wide, and her face was filled with light. She was racing up the mountainside towards the sheer drop, and Nicholas, in horror, saw she wasn't going to stop. And sure enough, she didn't. She just hurtled off the edge, and Nicholas could only watch and weakly clutch the ledge. Down the little girl went like a solid bar of lead. Did she know what she had done, that in a moment she'd be dead? Clearly not, for Nicholas could hear her peals of laughter. He couldn't bear to watch, so he threw himself off after. And remembering the days when he had watched the buzzards dive, he shot down like a bullet. This child must survive. If he could catch her up and grab her, hold her close to him, he could protect her like a cushion, though his candlelight was dim. He could clutch her to his chest and hit the ground upon his back. His chest was soft. His back was hard from sleeping in the shack. And with exuberance, arrow speed and poise, the old man dove. His heart burned green like emerald fire, roaring in a stove. The tiny little girl was now so close that he could touch her. He pulled her up and spun around to cradle and to clutch her. And at that moment, sun's last rays fell clear on this scene. And from the old man's shoulder blades burst wings of gold and green. They opened wide and gently turned the man and girl around and pulled them out of imminent collision with the ground. Up into the sky shot the old man and the child. The sky was ruby red and the air sweet and mild. Up the canyon wall they climbed fast as any bird, and from the old man's wings the songs of angels could be heard. He hears this music, knowing that he lives this life forever, that his task is showing faith cannot be won by being clever, that if we trust the ground will always rise to meet our feet, we can live our lives eternally in every single beat. Thank you very much. Greg, how are we doing? More? Okay. Something short, something... How many minutes have we got, roughly? 4. We got time for 6? I'm just trying to work it out. I don't want to make you go further. I'm going to just chance it. Somebody talked earlier today about Lucifer. And I find Lucifer a fascinating subject, because I have a very different take on what Lucifer and being Luciferian means. And in my visioning, we are all Luciferian, because it's not about evil. My understanding of Lucifer, although obviously people think of Satan and the devil when they speak about Lucifer, if God, right, is all the energy in the universe and everything in it, and as unity it cannot know itself, then everything in three-dimensional space-time, all these little fragments of things, planets, solar systems, people, stuff, animals, everything, it's all God consciousness manifesting as something outside of God. Now, the story of Lucifer isn't, I don't even know if it's in the Bible. It's not. Is it in the Old Testament or the New Testament, or is it somewhere else? Both? So this idea, did Lucifer leave, or did Lucifer get cast out? So here's an alternative version of Lucifer's fall from heaven, which came in at quite a 4-hour kind of, I had a vortex healing from a friend, and the next night I had for 4 hours in front of my computer. It was a very weird experience and a real pleasure. And this is what came out. And it's one of the few pieces that I do that isn't a poem. It's a little short story. The story of the light bearer. We're up for story, yes? Is this good? Okay. So you've got to check in. I didn't ask, I'm asking, that's fine, good. Firstly, it's important to note that the words Lucifer, Satan, and the devil conjure up images of fiery pits, temptation, darkness. These images have all been created by religion, and religion has been manufactured by man. The essence of the real Lucifer can be found in the story of his fall from heaven, if we choose to tell it like this. Lucifer was the most beautiful angel in the universe. He hadn't always been, but one day he had heard two of the other angels agreeing with each other that it was so, and that was how it became so. Lucifer knew that because he was the most beautiful angel in the universe, it also meant God loved him the best. God had never confirmed that this was truth, but Lucifer didn't need God's confirmation. For knowing he was the most loved and the most beautiful made him want to explode with happiness, like the universe itself at the beginning of time. In the universe, the happier an angel was, the more brightly they shone, and over time, Lucifer's light grew brighter and brighter. The other angels loved his light and wanted to bask in it whenever they could. They even gave him their own light whilst they were with him so that he could shine more brightly still. Whenever Lucifer went to sit with the other angels in the great circle, conversation would cease. All eyes were turned towards him, and those sitting closest could often be seen to have tears in their eyes, overcome with joy in the knowledge that they were sitting with the most beautiful angel in the universe. Whenever Lucifer left the great circle, conversation would turn always to questions. Where are you going? Why are you leaving us? Will you return? May we follow? How could we have pleased you more that you would wish to stay longer? And their tone was always the same, despairing. Over time, Lucifer began to both dread and to relish his departures from the great circle, and he would always respond with a mixed look of fondness and pity, and the same simple words. I will return, he would say, and then turning his back to his brothers and sisters, he would climb out of the valley and continue in upward spirals until he could climb no higher. This was the mountain of God. On one such afternoon, as Lucifer sat on a rocky outcrop looking out across a silvery expanse, the feelings of separation and of loneliness became more than he could bear, and he burst into tears. It was at precisely times like these that Lucifer needed the other angels most, but he never went back to them in these states of melancholy. No, it was better to suffer alone and to return only when he was strong again. So, closing his eyes, he began to imagine the faces of the other angels. He sought for the feelings of inner power that would fuel him when he sat in the great circle, and slowly but surely, he began to regain his composure. After a time, he felt strong enough to return to his comrades. God had been watching all the while, and now he came to Lucifer, though Lucifer had not asked to speak with him. Lucifer, said God, what are you doing? Why have you separated yourself? I have not separated myself, retorted Lucifer. I am the most adored and the most beautiful angel in the entire universe. A separated angel would surely look ugly and sad and have no friends. I have trillions of friends. Every other angel knows my name. Lucifer, the bearer of light. Yes, Lucifer, said God sadly, I gave you that name. But the light you bear is meant to be the light of the universe that flows in abundance through all things. You have been bearing the light bestowed on you by other angels. They give it freely, cried Lucifer defiantly, and accepting gifts is not a crime. But what do you give in return? I shine more brightly than any of the other angels, cried Lucifer. That is a gift beyond all others. Yes, agreed God, perhaps. But he who shines the brightest light leaves behind him the darkest shadow. And you know this. So why must you always leave the unity of the great circle, knowing you are going to return? I can't keep it up indefinitely, whispered Lucifer. So sometimes I have to separate myself, but I can't separate myself and continue to sit with my brothers and sisters simultaneously. I can't let them see what I look like when I'm not shining. Well, where do you go? I come here to be alone, and I'm not bright then. I'm dull. Yes, agreed God, the dullest of all the angelic nation. And in your dullness you could repair to the light of the universe that flows in abundance all around us, even now. Why do you not? Because it is everywhere. Every angel shines with it. Every angel looks the same. I do not look the same. And I like it. I do not want to shine with common universal light. Yet, said God, separation is merely an illusion because everything is one. And you choose to dwell here in separation as if it were real. But it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't serve you. It makes you sad to be alone. I've seen it. I'm never really alone, whispered Lucifer, knowingly, almost craftily. I take short spells of solitude, but no sooner am I gone than I can feel the other angels missing me and wishing I would return to them. And when the pull of their desire is greater than my desire for rest, I return to the great circle, and I'm welcomed by glad faces. My hands are kissed, my feet are washed. I'm given a throne to recline on. I do not require the light of the universe any longer. As Lucifer uttered these words, a shadow fell across his face. It grew stronger as the light continued to fade. What is happening? He cried into the expanding absence. You've cut your cord, came the voice of God, which was faint and seemed to be coming from above. Lucifer realized now that he must be outside the light of the universe. No angel had done that before, and Lucifer felt proud to be different. You will come back to the light of the universe, came the voice of God, so faint now that Lucifer could hardly hear it. But first, you will forget that separation is an illusion, and in your forgetfulness, you will teach others to adore you in a world of duality. Go well, my one. You are love. And then, as pure light refracts through a prism into the infinite colors of a rainbow, so Lucifer passed through the prism of God's eye and out across the cosmos in all possible directions and into all possible dimensions. An explosion that sent shards like shooting stars out into the farthest reaches of space and time. This event was later known as the Big Bang. That's it. So, I guess with that story, we can really start to see that if God is absolute consciousness, religion will tell us that you've got a coin and heads is God and tails is the devil. But if you look at God through the eyes of quantum physics, God is the coin and what's on both sides of it. So, more? I can hear my parents going, Simon, are you sure they're still enjoying you, or are you just starting to show off now? Do you need to go to bed? Stay? Brilliant. Are you guys having an optimal moment? Yeah, they're cool. Right, okay. Well, it brings me on to the next piece then in this make it up as you go along kind of set. Wicked! I wrote a 3-part series called God versus Weapons of Mass Destruction, as you do. And the first part is called God is Shit and Sugar, which is a less gracious way of talking about God being the coin. There are many ways to say this, but the message cannot change. Many will reject it as peculiar and strange. Strange makes people frown, makes them question where to go. It asks them to consider all the things they do not know. God has been abandoned through the twisting of the Bible, and many have decided that it's better to be tribal. Dog eat dog and cat eat cat. There is no holy savior. In order to survive, we must exhibit cruel behavior. They think this life is all there is. Beyond, there's just a void. That when we die, person that we were will be destroyed. So grab the things you'll need for now, the things you'll need for later,
No one's looking after us. There isn't a creator. Some believe quite differently that God's an awesome guy, that he watches and rewards us from his home beyond the sky, that heaven is a place that only certain souls can find, that the rest of us are damned because we're sinners and we're blind. But whether you're a Catholic, a Protestant or Jew, or a Buddhist or a Hindu or a soul without a clue, God is not a vessel for the prayers of your agenda. God is like a mirror. Every prayer reflects the sender. God is your reflection in the world you see and feel. God is everyone you meet. That's what makes us real. God is not reserved for the biblical believer, though some may say this poem is the work of a deceiver. God is simply everything from subtle to extreme, famine, war, and paradise, reality and dream. God is rich and poor alike. God is dull and bright. God is in the darkest spaces. God is in the light. God is in the monastery, the brothel, and the bank. God is in the military, driving every tank. God is in the money that's extorted from the poor and waiting on the other side of every single door. We wrestle with this truth, for though it's simple and complete, how can God, our Saviour, be the sinner in the street? How can God be cruelty? How can God be lies? How can God be bombs that drop from blood-red, war-torn skies? Are you ready for the truth? Simple, clean, and pure. Do you still carry hatred? Are you ready for a cure? Do you forgive the people that have wronged you in your life? The bank that took your house away, your violent ex-wife, the man that beat your teeth in when he'd had too much to drink, the ones that said your packy nigger faggot armpits stink. If you are not ready to forgive, then stop right here. This truth won't set you free. It will magnify your fear. If you think your way of thinking's better than the others, then you're still passing judgment on your sisters and your brothers. The truth will thus expose you to yourself. You cannot hide from the mirror that reflects the pain you carry deep inside. But when your hurt is great, when your wounds are very deep, your memories are things that you perhaps don't wish to keep. You'd like to leave the broken you behind in yesterday. You do not look behind you and you walk the other way. But who you were is who you are. Your suffering is you. You're vulnerable and precious. Do you know that this is true? Perhaps you were abused by your father or your mother. Maybe you're an orphan and you have no loving other. Maybe you're an addict or a glutton or a thief. Maybe someone told you that you're rotten underneath. All these things are gifts that have made you who you are. It is time for you to see it. You have come so very far. The truth is underfoot. You are brilliant and bright. You're suffering the key that can release you from this fight. You do not have to change. Your imperfections make you you. And why this is important, I'll explain in chapter 2. Now, we're not going to do chapter 2 right now, so if you would like chapter 2 and 3, I suggest that you get your little notepad and write down simonwelshpoetry.co.uk. That's Simon Welsh, W-E-L-S-H, poetry.co.uk. I have my bag somewhere around the place. I've got business cards in there. It's on there as well, on my business card. And when you go there, God versus Weapons of Mass Destruction, parts 1, 2, and 3 are in my 4th series, which is called Be Your Own Hero. Not currently in book, but on the website, and you can listen to the audio. And I think part 1 also has a YouTube video that I made to go with it. And if you want to look me up on YouTube and subscribe to me there, it's Simon Welsh 33 is my YouTube channel. And if you're on Facebook, I'm feeling like a digital whore right now. It's Simon the Poet. Simon the Poet on Twitter and Facebook. And you can follow me. And a couple of times a year, I spend a couple of months doing interactive poetry, where every day I say, what do we want a poem about today? And if you're on Facebook, you can just put a word or a phrase that you want to see featured in a poem at the end of that day. And then at 11 o'clock at night or so, I sort of draw the line and say, right, no more suggestions, please. And then I stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning writing a poem in rhyme that explores consciousness or God or vibration or spirit in some way that hopefully will end in an optimal, beautiful, let's all cry and celebrate kind of way. With all the suggestions verbatim in it. It's quite tricky, especially when people say things like coffee-flavoured pudding. There's all sorts of weird suggestions that people like to kind of see if they can trip me up with. It's quite exciting. How are we doing? Are we done? Woo! That was a challenge.